Good evening and welcome to the Joint Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners meeting of October 3rd, 2023. I am Rob Thomas, the Planning and Zoning Vice Chair, standing in for the Chair. Prior to this meeting, announcements were posted and notices were sent to all board members, commissioners, staff, interested parties, and applicants participating in the meeting. I will now turn over to Chairman Phil Miller to introduce and confirm the presence of the commissioners.
Okay, we're re-adjourning the meeting from this morning. Is Commissioner Alcaraz present?
Present.
Commissioner Kelly Robertson present?
Fitzgerald, present.
Is Commissioner Carthen, Vice Chair Carthen present? He's not.
She's walking in right now.
Oh, she is? Well, she is present. She's almost present.
There you go.
And Commissioner Ricky Dobbs. I think he's absent, sir. So we do have a quorum. Commissioner, Vice Chair Carthen, are you here?
Present.
Okay. We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Also present, we have a member of the Planning and Zoning Board. Please confirm your presence as I call your name. Ms. Teresa Knowles.
Present.
Mr. Ora Quirk.
Present.
Mr. Frank Payne.
Present.
And Mr. Kirk Nichols.
Present.
Great, we have a quorum. Allison Duncan, our Planning and Zoning Manager, will now introduce the county staff and Planning and Zone that's present.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight we have with us our Chief of Staff, Tiffany Stewart Stanley, our County Attorney, Cheryl Ringer, our Managing Director of Development Services, James Worthington, our Managing Director of Transportation, Suleiman Rana, our Senior Zoning Administrator, Phil Schaefer, our Senior Planner, Jaquel Johnson, our Planning and Zoning Clerk, Johanna Womack, our Planning and Zoning Secretary, Kim Waters, and as always, we appreciate the services of our communications team and our sheriff's deputies for being here with us this night also. Thank you.
Great. There's a reversionary clause that applies to each rezoning, and that is the applicant, the agent, or property owner has 24 months to vest the zoning change after the Board of Commissioners have granted an approval. The way tonight procedures will go, the Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Board will conduct a public hearing, that is I. Planning and Zoning staff will announce each application, followed by a full presentation of that application. The applicant or their representative and members of the public in favor of the application will be able to present their information. They will have 2 minutes per person for a total of 15 minutes to speak on behalf of the application. Members of the public in opposition of the application will also be able to present their information. They will also have 2 minutes per person for a total of 15 minutes to speak in opposition of the application. This is important that after the opposition is complete, their input or time has elapsed, the public hearing will be officially closed. What does that mean? After that point, the staff will clarify any points of the zoning case. If the staff is unable to satisfy the board's questions, the board will then ask the applicant for points of clarity. This is not a time to re-present the application or the case. It's just to get point of clarity at that point. So, with all that being said, our first agenda item tonight will be the approval of the minutes from the September 6, 2023 regular Joint Planning and Zoning Board and the BOC meeting. Planning and Zoning Board, after reviewing the minutes, does any P&Z member have any comments, changes, or questions for either of the minutes? No questions? So do I have a motion?
This is Frank Payne. I approve the minutes for September 6, 2023.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
Great. I'll call a member to vote. So all that approve, please raise your hand. Right, have unanimous approval. Turn over to the chairman with the unanimous approval, the minutes.
Commissioners, are there any changes, comments, or questions reference the minutes from the September 6, 2023 meeting? Do I have a motion to accept the meeting?
Motion to accept meeting.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same. Motion passes, sir.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to open the public hearing. Anyone, well, the first application will be presented by staff. That's right, let me get that one. So first item, need to untable Z 2023-61.
Mr. Vice Chair, I recommend untabling of Z 2023-6.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Ford Curry, second.
Great. All in favor? Raise your hand. Thank you. Untable of Z 2023-61 passed unanimously.
Commissioners, are you in favor of untabling 2023 or 223-61? Is that correct? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Motion passes, sir.
Thank you. All right. So Mr. Johnson is going to introduce the first agenda item. Thank you.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Board, as well as Board of Commissioners. The first case I have before you is Z 2023-61, rezoning application for Chi-Chi's Healthcare and Medical Supply, LLC. The applicant is requesting for a rezoning from residential low density to office institute for a medical office and residence located at 7209 North County Line Road, Lithia Springs, 3012, land lot 567, District 18, Section 2, Parcel 1. The total lot size of the property is 9.92 acres in size. The subject property currently fronts the west side of North County Line Road near the intersection of Raleigh Road. The property currently has two primary structures on it. The first one being a 1,222 square foot building built in 1899, and the second being 2,268 square feet built in 2016. And there are 3 accessory structures also on the property. Planning concerns. Rezoning this parcel would be considered a spot zoning because it would be surrounded by residential if rezoned. The proposed use does not meet the developmental pattern established in this area, and the required infrastructure improvements to accommodate this use are significant. Required transportation improvements and a connection to sewer will need to be installed prior to the establishment this use on the site. P&Z is concerned with the transition of this parcel to a non-residential zoning district, and the use will, with the commensurate required improvements, could result in the determination of infeasibility. This will result in 9+ acres of OI zoning that could be required for a use greater intensity in the future. It would not conform to the circumstances presented in this application. Before you, I have the zoning map. The subject property is highlighted in red. As you can see, it is currently RLD, residential low density, as well as the surrounding properties. Before you, I have an aerial image. The highlighted portion in red is what the applicant is proposing to rezone to OI, Office Institute, and it is 2.35 acres in size. Before you on the left, I have a survey of the property, and the right, the proposed site plan of upgrades to the property. And based on the zoning analysis, staff recommends denial. However, if approved with the following condition of this requested rezoning 2023-61 from RLD to OI, with the following findings and conditions. The findings are that the rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. The use permissible in the proposed zoning district are generally compatible with surrounding properties. The character of this area has been evolving towards commercial development for years. The granting of the rezoning will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Along with the following condition. Condition number 1, the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration the specific site development and access management plans to address the developmental standards in the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in staff report dated September 6, 2023. 2, the property is conditioned to the use in the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impacts. The property is conditioned to use and site plan submitted with this application, and for no other purpose, any other use of the property must be presented to Douglas County Board of Commissioners for zoning change to modify these conditions. 3, the existing right-of-way width along the property's frontage of North County Line Road does not meet the minimum right-of-way width for a minor arterial road per UDC code. Additional right-of-way equal to 50 feet from the road center line shall be dedicated to Douglas County to comply with required minimum right-of-way. 4, curb and gutter along with the appropriate drainage structures shall be installed along the entire property frontage of North County Line Road. 5, install a 5-foot wide sidewalk along the entire property of North County Line Road located 4 foot behind curb. 6, a commercial driveway shall be constructed at location meeting or exceeding intersection site distance for a 35 miles per hour roadway. 7, provide a deceleration lane complying with the county standards into the proposed driveway. 8, the property must connect to public sewer unless permission for on-site septic system is expressly granted by the Water and Sewer Authority. If permission for septic is granted, a permitted and inspected septic system must be in place prior to any approval from environmental health. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. I'm now going to open the public hearing. Anyone in favor, including the applicant and their representative, wish to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record. Then make any comments you would like to. You have 2 minutes per person with a total of 15 minutes.
Evening, everyone. Joe Fowler, Post Office Box 489. Let me introduce the applicant, Chichi Okoli. He owns a property that is used for this same purpose, is renting a property on South Sweetwater for a day training facility for disabled and developmentally challenged persons. What she proposes on this site.
Mr. Fowler, are you or your client going to approve the conditions or agree with the
No,
conditions?
sir.
No.
No, sir, and I'll explain why in just a moment, if I may. And I know I'm bumping up against my 2 minutes. I don't mean to go over, but it's going to take a moment to explain it. I recognize under RLD that this use seems to be more than just a residential facility for disabled and developmentally challenged persons. That's all this is. It is in a residential setting. And if you look at the UDC and read what O&I indicates, it's like this commercial use that's going to be thrown down right into the rather sleepy North County Line residential area. It's not that at all. This is a residential facility for disabled adults. She does it already successfully on South Sweetwater in a rented facility. So in June of this year, she closed on the property, all 9 acres, unwittingly, not very smart, because it wasn't properly zoned at the time she did it. But her goal is simply this, to continue what she regards actually as a ministry to those developmentally disabled persons in a quasi-residential setting. And in a moment, she will explain precisely what she does. but it is no more an O&I use than I am tall. It is simply a way for her to minister in a residential setting with people who need assistance. Now, about the conditions, the DOT has required curbing, guttering, 5-foot sidewalks, additional right-of-way, and an XL-decel lane that goes off the property that she does not own. I've talked with the DOT about that. They may let her shrink the XL-decel lane, but if she's required to curb, gutter, and put sidewalks and grant right-of-way, she can't do this project. There's a provision in the code, in the UDC, Section 1306, that allows the Board of Commissioners to make a decision to, in circumstances where you think it appropriate, to indicate that she is not required. So depending on the action that you take tonight, that will be a portion of our request. She will condition this to O&I for this specific purpose, and gladly. If it doesn't fit normally in the RLD classification, and Allison and I have talked about it a whole lot, and maybe it doesn't, but it's certainly not an O&I office use like you might see if you go outside the courthouse here and look at O&I. It's residential for seniors who need assistance. She's able to do it, and she asks for approval. It will be conditionally zoned for this specific use, and then we would ask the Board of Commissioners to relieve her from the obligation of doing the DOT standards. If we do not get approval, and likewise can't get the waiver under 1306, then she'll just leave it as it is, and she can help 6 under the code already. Her goal is to provide more seniors who need assistance. I know I went over. Thank you for your allowing me to do that.
All right, is anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? Please state your name and your address.
My name is Chichi Okoli, and my office is 6867 South Sweetwater Road, Unit B, Lithia Spring, Georgia 30122. And currently that's where we have our adult daycare for the developmentally challenged. We've had the honor of providing services for people that need our help, that need our care, that need our love. Now, they come here Monday through Friday in our day center. Monday through Friday, we pick some up, and some parents or guardians come and drop them off. And what we do basically is trying to integrate these good, beautiful human beings that don't have the opportunity, that can get around just like you and I get up. Some of them, most of them are in wheelchairs. Some of them, the parents or guardians are older, elderly, because they are adults. So we go get them. We teach them how to get back into the system. We train them. We teach them money management. We do personal care. We take them out into the community. Some of them have challenges with behavior. We care for them. We take them to doctor's appointment. They go to work. Sometimes you go to Walmart or Publix and you see some of them bagging. There's always a personal care, a DSP right there, direct support personnel, that is there, that is assisting, making sure that they get to work. We do unemployment. We take them out into the community. They go to parties. They do. What I'm asking is, if you give us opportunity to bring this training facility into Douglas County. We're already in Douglas County. Well, the space that we're renting is pretty small. All we're asking, I saw this property and 10 acres. I didn't, well, like Mr. Fowler said, I didn't get it to get or drink, but I was excited because to me, this is an opportunity. This is land. This is land where I could expand. It is a heaven. There is a creek where they would do structures and workshops and have a good life. Please allow me to bring this program.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in favor of this application? Please speak your name and address.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mbane Kafise. I am the developmental disability professional for Chichi's Healthcare Services. And we serve individuals with intellectual disability and also with physical disability. We have a day program, and that's the reason why we're trying to acquire this property so that we can be able to have these individuals to be able to integrate into the society like a normal me and you on a daily life, where they don't have opportunities to integrate. And we also think that bringing this institution into Douglas County, where we already are, and particularly on that property, it will help also to improve employment around the neighborhood and even in the society, where many others can also have the opportunity to come in and learn. And also in that property, or what we do on a daily basis, it helps bring awareness around the community that we have people on wheelchair that actually can move from one place to another, an institution where they call home, to help them and get a better life. Most often when these people come, they go into the society, they feel loved by the staff, they feel loved by the people that see how they care for them. So all we're asking today is for you guys to help us to bring this community or this institution into this piece of land where the individuals can have a better opportunity. They have spacious places where they can actually have their own market, their own grocery stores, and their little things that look like them. So that's what we're here to ask tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in favor of this application? Like to speak? We still have a few more minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cepeda Whitfield. I'm a CLS worker for Chi-Chi's Healthcare. So what I do essentially...
Your address, please.
My address? My address is 1098 Arnold Lane, Hiram, Georgia. But I work for Chi-Chi's Healthcare as a CLS worker. So essentially what I do is take the individuals out into community, teach them social skills, teach them, I teach them a lot of different skills, but the program that she provides, it helps them to gain confidence. It allows the community to see them and to know that they're different, but not treat them different. We treat them all with respect and care. They have an opportunity to come and gain friendships in the community, also in the day program or the programs that she provides. I know that what she's doing is a great thing. She also provides like respite care. She also provides family services where family members are included in her program to assist with taking care of the individual, giving them little breaks and that kind of thing. So it's not just a day program where they're doing arts and crafts and stuff like that. They actually they gain a lot of confidence and in the community, and I'm all for it. I just think it's a great thing.
Thank you. How many more minutes we have? Anyone else want to speak in approval or for this applicant? Okay. Well, I'm gonna close the in favor, and I'm gonna open the opposition. Anyone here wish to speak in opposition of this application? Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Then make any comments that you would like. You have 2 minutes per person with a total of 15 minutes. In opposition. All right, seeing no movement, I will close the public hearing. Now for questions from the planning and zoning. Do you have any
Yes,
questions?
Yeah, I have a question for the applicant. So you stated that this facility what time will the facility be open and closed? Do you have a time already?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Usually the day program, it's only active Monday through Friday, 8:30 till 2:30. That's when the workers come, but the individuals get picked up. It starts from 9 to 3.
Okay. And how many staff will you have there?
It all
know?
depends. It all depends on how many individuals that we have, because each individual, as you letting you know, some of them, depending on their level of development and what their needs are, we have individuals that have mild behavior, severe behaviors. They could have one-on-one. So in other words, say for instance, if I have 3 individuals, but 2 of them have one-on-one, that means I'm going to have about 4 staff for just those 3 individuals, because 24/7, or as long as the individual is in the day program, whatever he or she is doing needs one-on-one. So to answer your question safely, I would say each individual, 1 staff to 6 individuals if it's under normal circumstances. If it's one-on-one, then it is 1 individual to 1 staff.
So what would be your maximum amount of clients that you would have at a specific time?
For the
For the program.
For the property that we have, the space that we have right now, we could look about 25 to 30. And this structure, sir, if I may ask, the structure that we intending to use, it's already there. All we're trying to do is just to modify it and bring it to code. We're not putting any more structures into this property. As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to take down 2 structures that are already there and just complete the one that is already uncompleted.
Okay. I have no other further questions.
I have a few.
Yes, sir.
I think what you're doing is wonderful.
Thank you.
Something that's in the community. But I think the major concern is regarding the conditions to this. What are your plans in terms of?
Right now, are you referring to the DOT concerns and requirements that are asking us? To be honest with you, that would drown us. I know we're not going to be able to meet all the requirements that they're asking us. But I invite you, just like I've extended invitation to the zoning, to come out there and look at the property. And we can work with them and see what we can do. I'm not a land surveyor, but I know my pocket. And I know my pocket is not going to answer that call. But I want safety at all times to be the most, and first of all, I have to have licensed by Georgia Department of Community Health. So definitely they have to be the one to come and inspect and approve before I could do anything. So I assure you, we will do everything that we can to make sure that safety first and safety all the time, all through. But for the extent as to what they're asking me to do, I cannot do that, sir. But I would love to continue to be here in Douglas County. I'm already here. I don't want to go nowhere.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have currently a day program?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Is that all that you are proposing on this property, is a day program? Not 24/7, they're not staying overnight, living there?
For now, with the property that we have, yes, ma'am, that's all we're doing. A
So
day
the one
program.
on South Sweetwater, it's a day
Yeah, it's
program.
a day. It's like an office. The one on Sweetwater Road is a day program. Individuals and workers come in Monday through Friday, and from 8 to 4. But the individuals do 9 to 3. But we have to be there to receive them. We go pick them up and we drop them off.
So there'll be a lot of vehicles coming and going on this property.
Actually, there's none because we pick them up. It's just my van. If you know where we are, the only vehicles that do come in and go are the staff. and the rest of it, we pick the individuals up. We go to their homes, we pick them up, and we take them back after classes. Yes, ma'am.
So 6 is your maximum clientele? 6?
No, ma'am. No,
I
no,
think
no.
it's 6, by right, it's 6.
All right, so you're proposing.
Well, what I'm saying is 6 individual to
Okay.
1 staff.
But you're projecting your plans are for
About 30.
about 30.
Yes, because we have the capacity and we have the space in the property. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
My pleasure.
I have a question for you. So, what are you going to do with the rest of the land, the
Oh.
other acreage?
Oh, for now, it is just gonna be the day program. Down the road, by God's grace, we could open it up a little bit and put a residential in there for the adult with special need as well. I already have one, so we can put another one. We have enough land for that, but right now, that's not what we're doing.
Okay. The conditions, let me make sure everyone's clear, so we make a vote on this, we understand exactly what was proposed and what you said you were able to do. So I think what I need to do is get those conditions back up again, like all of them, what the DOT's requiring, and then look at it from the cartel as they want, as the conditions that they said they can do. And one thing in particular, sewer. Is that one that she's still, is that one you still plan to keep, that condition, to be on sewer, or are you still trying to stay septic? So you don't want to go on the sewer either. So not just DOT, but also WSA requirements that you're asking to take off.
Oh,
I'm sorry, let me, because that's those are big things, right? Okay, let's see all the conditions. Let's start with that first. What is required?
as presented, the first condition is the applicant shall submit to DRC for review and consideration the specific site development access management plans to address the development standards in the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated September 6, 2023. The second condition is this property is conditioned to the use in the site plan submitted with this application only and for no other purpose. Any other use of this property must be presented to the Douglas County Board of Commissioners for a zoning change to modify these conditions. 3. The existing right-of-way width along the property's frontage of North County Line Road does not meet the minimum right-of-way width for a minor artillery roadway per UDC code. Additional right-of-way equal to 50 feet from the roadway center line shall be dedicated to Douglas County to comply with the required minimum right-of-way. 4. Curb and gutter with the appropriate drainage structures shall be installed along the entire property frontage of North County Line Road. 5. Install a 5-foot wide sidewalk along the entire property frontage of North County Line Road, located 4 foot behind curb. 6. A commercial driveway shall be constructed at a location meeting or exceeding intersection site distance for a 35-mile-per-hour road. 7. Provide a deceleration lane complying with county standards into the proposed driveway. 8. The property must connect to public sewer unless permission for on-site septic system is expressly granted by the Water and Sewer Authority. If permission for septic is granted, a permitted inspected septic system must be in place prior to any approval for environmental health.
Okay. And then you had an abbreviated one that you said if we did approve it, you had other conditions that could be satisfied.
Yes. Alternate conditions, the applicant shall submit to Development Review Committee, DRC,
So 1, okay.
for consideration to specific site development access management plans to address developmental standards in the UDC and the concerns and the requirements expressed specific agency Impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated September 6, 2023, with the exception of conditions 4, 5, 7, and 8.
So keep those up for a minute. So 4, 5, 7, and 8. 4, okay. All right, 4, 5, 7, and 8. Planning and zoning can live with, if approved.
Well, that is
Taking those out, I'm saying, taking those out.
I can't speak for DOT and Water Sewer Authority. However,
So, okay. So I'm trying to understand you brought up something else that showed an abbreviated version. And I just want to see that as compared to this.
Hey, just to clarify, planning and zoning recommendation is to deny.
Right.
We think this is spot zoning.
Okay.
The applicant is asking for approval. If you are inclined to approve, there are conditions to satisfy the agency impacts that need to be approved along with it. Now, if you have questions about the DOT impacts, Director Rana is here tonight and he can speak to that.
Okay.
What we would ask is if you are inclined to approve and you are inclined to not require the improvements to infrastructure, you make that expressly clear by adding a condition that says you are not requiring that. Because if you are just silent, right, if you just say approval with conditions 1 through 3, then you are silent on the requirement, and those are all requirements of the code. So we would need to understand that you are expressly telling the staff that you do not want this applicant to have to comply with those requirements. Again, it is the recommendation of staff that the entire application be denied outright. But we just want to make it clear, an abundance of transparency, that you give us very clear direction about what the will of the board is if you are inclined to approve this. Does that help clarify where we are with this?
Yes. Is WSA here as well?
WSA is not here
Okay.
this evening.
Just DOT. Okay.
DOT.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. You mentioned, Mr. Fowler, you mentioned that there's exceptions. And I just want to see, kind of go over those exceptions you mentioned that would apply here, the
Yes, sir.
exceptions to the rule.
First off, Allison and I have argued about whether or not this is spot zoning. I think this is a quasi-residential use, and we just agree to disagree about that. I think these folks need to be mainstreamed in a residential-looking area, and that's precisely what this is. We would consent to conditions 2 and 8. If the WSA requires sewage because of the capacity of the building, you'll either have to reduce the capacity or connect to sewer. That's pretty simple. That's going to be a regulatory requirement by the WSA. So 2 and 8. With respect to the other conditions that have been mentioned that you see before you, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, there's a code provision in the UDC that allows you to make an exception for these types of ordinance-imposed requirements. It's section 1306, and it requires a specific finding and a specific direction to staff that it is appropriate under these circumstances to waive those. And we would request that if you determine to approve it, that you don't improve it with us having the requirement to do the DOT standards, you'll just drop back and leave it RLD. We don't want to be O&I having to do these things, and then she loses the right to have at least 6. So we would appreciate a motion to approve 2 and 8, and then it would go to the Board of Commissioners to consider whether or not they believe 1306 applies.
So what would be your reason for the 1306 to apply in this situation other than a financial reason?
Other than
the financial burden, what would be a reason?
Well, I'll say it respectfully. There's a practice of the DOT requiring sidewalks, curb and guttering all over the county, even though they are, I hate to say it this way, but I hear it all the time from the development community, sidewalks to nowhere. And that's precisely what it was. If you get in your car at Bankhead Highway and drive south to this property, it's a mile. There's not a sidewalk on either side, not curb and gutter. If you take that 90-degree turn and go by her property and then do another 90-degree and go, what you find next is the only thing that's solid is the rock quarry. Now, if you go a quarter of a mile west, you'll see a subdivision, and internally in that subdivision, there's sidewalks, curb and gutters. But other than that, This is a rural area, and this is precisely what she wants for her people. That is to be in that setting.
All right, thank you. Mr. Johnson, one other thing, do you have pictures of the front of, the frontage? Like, so we can see exactly what the road view would look like?
I do not have
Okay.
pictures of the front of the property.
Okay.
See, can I pull it up?
You're gonna go Google it real quick? Okay, good. This will be get a good look. Let's see what it looks like, yeah. Tell you what, while we're doing that, I'm gonna pass it over to Chairman for any questions from the Board of Commissioners.
Commissioners, do you have any questions regarding Z 2023-61? Vice Chair Carson.
Yes, ma'am.
Understand why this particular application not like daycare to require.
So, like an adult daycare, we would not allow an adult daycare for this number of individuals in a residential zoning district. Under our current zoning, you can have up to 6 persons or 6 children under care in a residential home daycare setting. Once you get over that number, you have to be in a commercial zoning district. So the applicant's desire is to have up to, I think, 25 or 30 is what she had identified. And so that is a requirement that would have to fall into a commercial zoning district, whether it is children or adults.
Subdivided, not saying. I'm not her. I'm not giving her identity. If she decided to subdivide property, she could have 6 parcels.
6 in-home daycare.
She could have 10 acres.
Well, if you wanted to cut in a road, right? So in that instance, if she was trying to subdivide, then she would have to cut a road into the property. She would have to make all of those requirements, so curb, gutter, stormwater improvements, connect to sewer, presumably on the lots that were that size. But as zoned, you are correct. She could do a single-family residential subdivision if she cut in a road, 50-foot wide right-of-way, meeting the county standards and met all of the other infrastructure improvement requirements.
Got you. And so for this, the only I'm just as pretty straightforward. Has a big property, buy a big property, and we'll use it resident for those to probably roam the property, get exercise, together. I get that we must follow code. By that, I exist. I just squint. But I do thank you all for being letter of the law. That's what we do. With that, Chairman.
Anyone else? Commissioner Robinson.
Yeah, I thank you. I'm glad we got to weigh in. I thought it was about to get away from us, since we will be having the ones that have to give the exception. I get adult daycare, I get personal care home, I get assisted living. About 24 to 30 people, that scale. That's huge. Don't get me wrong. I understand. I appreciate the mission. I mean, the Douglas County Board of Commissioners just this morning, we did a proclamation for obviously disability employment in the county, which was very important. Don't get me wrong. I get this. This simply comes down to right there. You're trying to make this institutional hand and it's like, okay, I get it. I get it. You're trying to get the best of both worlds. You want to be grown with this institutional feel. 24 people, that's institutional. But you want the residential, like, but I get the love you got to do. But you, right? It's how we apply policy. I'm probably on the other side of the fence. It's like, but I'll always respect the will of my board members. But on this one, like, but you want the convenience of the residential and everything. You don't want to do this. Now I get the road to nowhere. Obviously the county is what it is. Whether you chose to put sidewalks in back in the day versus now, we're not going to have that conversation right now. Irrelevant. The policy is what it is today. The question is, will the board override this? I hear the spot zoning, like, and nobody opposed this. Nobody said anything. Not meaning the public. So I'm like, okay, well, ain't nobody complaining. It's not could we do this, but should we do this? I got to think about this one, but I tend to be more conformist right now, in the sense that, yeah, I get it. Find the votes. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? How far are the other residents, how close to this complex are the other residents, Joe?
An institutional facility immediately to the west. It is owned by Cobb County. Adult program like this joins to the west. Less. In fact, the driveways, ours you go into the left, this is straight. Beyond that, several hundred feet. Take the 90 and the other 90 and go south. A few hundred feet or more, and it's on the other side of North County.
So it would be reasonable for us to assume that if she did have 20 or 30 people there, that it wouldn't interfere with other residences around there. So
No, sir.
that's my concern. I agree with Mr. Robinson. 20 to 30 people is a lot, but if we're not interrupting other people or their lives or the way they live, then I'd be more interested in it. But
Yes, sir.
I don't know either at this point.
There's also a church across the street to the right, down on the front, across North County line.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
Vice Chair, may I ask the DOT directors?
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners.
Yes, sir. I just, in your opinion, if they waive the condition number 7, which is a decel lane, and I know that it's on a pretty sharp curve there, is that going to be dangerous for other drivers?
Yes, so one of our comments was to ensure appropriate side distance for the entrance of this property. That's one of the conditions. Decel lane, this being close to a curve, definitely helps because it boxes or out pockets everybody that's trying to turn into their development. So that is what we think is appropriate for this use, and we were willing to work with the applicant to ensure that we limit the size of that decel, so it's not a full-fledged decel that you'll see on regular developments, but just a mini version of it that suits their use. So we think they're important and they would be needed.
If it was just a straight right of way, it would not be as important to have the decel lane, I would think. But being on that curve, it seems more important to leave that condition in there. That's just the way I feel. I was just by you. And the curb and gutter, that is basically drainage reasons, or what is the curb and gutter purpose?
Curb and gutter mainly helps with drainage management and storm runoff management, and that's what it would do here.
So it would prevent her property from being flooded?
It would basically just manage the stormwater coming off of the roadway. It would definitely help divert water away from her property, but better manage it overall for that section.
It would send it on down the road, possibly?
Yes, so it would collect it
Creek.
through a closed system and then discharge it at the next open section, wherever that may be.
But it seems pretty important, in your opinion, to leave that condition in place.
As far as it's concerned, this mainly helps the drainage side of it, as the UDC dictates just how the provisions are written. It mandates that DOT ensures implementation of curb and gutter. So we're not at the liberty to say anything otherwise. That is why, we are recommending for its implementation.
Would it impact the septic system there? Water?
I wouldn't be able to speak to that. The curb and gutter wouldn't directly impact the septic, but that would be up to WSA to deal with that.
Thank you, sir.
One other question. Have you given many exceptions like this?
No, we try to minimize the number of exceptions because, as you're aware, the heavy volume of developments we see, we try to apply the UDC indifferently to all kinds of developments depending on the use. And that really helps us keep this partnership of infrastructure improvements going because we get to apply these to these new developments.
But you have done some exceptions.
We have done exceptions, and how the code reads is it has to be site specific for curb and gutter and some of these sidewalk and deceleration.
Mm-hmm.
We do those exceptions, but they're strictly site related. For example, they have a limited roadway frontage. So in that case, we would give them an exception from a full diesel lane to a mini version of a diesel lane, so they don't have to go and buy more right-of-way to do our improvements.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from planning and zoning? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You was going to show us, Mr. Johnson, the frontage, or I kind of see the angle, but I just wanted to get a little better look.
So this is looking at the property from North County Line Road. As you can see, there's a shared driveway, one going to the subject parcel and the other going to the PSP zoning.
And they do similar work there, right? Is that what they do at the county? I mean, the government facility there? Not sure.
I'm
what
not
they do.
aware.
Okay, all right.
And this is the curve around North County Line Road. And the subject property is to the right, and there are homes to the left. And just continuing down this, eventually you will hit the rock quarry. But all of this is still the subject property. Well, not here, but back that way.
Okay.
To the left.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, so planning and zoning. You have heard the presentations and discussions concerning this matter. Do I have a motion from the board?
And the original conditions, Vice Chair, 9, how many?
Eight.
Eight. Yeah, 8 total.
And the applicant is only in agreement with number 1 and, number
2 and 8.
2 and 8. That's correct.
This is Frank Payne, and I recommend now for Z 2023-61 zoning for residential low density, 2 office institute for an office and facility for an adult day program for individual development, physical, located at 7209 North County Line Road, City of Springs, Georgia.
I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
I second it, Mr. Vice Chair.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll take a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Chairman, we're coming with the denial.
Chair, quick point of order.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, real quick, Allison or what commission district is this?
This is District Number 1, sir.
You're back, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Commissioners, the Board of Planning and Zoning has denied or recommended denial of the 2023-61. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I move to approve item Z 2023-61 with conditions 2 and 8, and to deny other recommendations within that clause.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any discussion? Is there any discussion? Having no discussion, all in favor? All opposed?
Okay.
Don't carry. 2-2.
In the event of a tie, there would not be a majority obtained for the vote, so the motion would fail.
Yeah. Thank you. The motion fails. Next.
Unfortunately, the motion did fail. We're asking for the next applicant, please.
All right, the next item we have is Z 2023-62. This is a request for rezoning for Foxhall Investors LLC. This was tabled at our last meeting, so we will need to untable this item again. The applicant has asked for it to be tabled again until October 30th. Staff is ready to present tonight, but staff is also amenable to the request to table further. So I might recommend at this time that you go ahead and untable Z 2023-62, and then we can proceed with any presentation about their request to table.
Right. I make a motion to untable Z 2023-62.
I second.
All in favor? Chairman, we have an announced decision to untable 2023-62.
Commissioners, we have a motion to, I guess you voted, it's not a motion, right?
I mean, I'm sorry, approval.
We have an approval to untable Z 2023-62. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to untable Z 2023-60.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries, sir.
So before commencing with the public hearing, I would like to, if it's the will of the board, give the applicant the opportunity to present their request to table. Again, staff is ready to move forward, but we are also amenable to the request to table if it is the will of the board to do so. Otherwise, we would need to proceed with the public hearing. But I believe Joe Fowler represents the application.
Okay.
Joe Fowler, Post Office Box 49. This is a PUD, as you know, and PUD requires that we essentially establish an ordinance to the extent that it is inconsistent with the existing UDO. Because of that, we have been spending probably 2 months working through the refinements of the details of taking the Foxhall project and sort of bringing it up to 2023, making revisions to various things. We are not log jammed on any major issues, but we have 2 or 3 minor things, one involving the WSA, 2 or 3 involving the DOT. We just request another month to get that worked out. That's it. Thank you.
So again, our request from staff would be to understand the will of the board. If you would like to see if there is the inclination to table, that would be to the October 30th regular meeting. Otherwise, if there is not a motion to table, then we will take that as indication you'd like to proceed with the hearing this evening.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to table Z 2023-62.
Or Curry, second.
To clarify, to the October 30th.
To the October 30th.
Thank you.
Planning and Zoning Board.
Thank you.
Or Curry, second.
Thank you. Take a vote, please. All in favor? Raise your hand. Thank you. Chairman, unanimous decision to table Z 2023-62 to the October 30th combined planning and zoning BOC meeting.
Board of Commissioners, we have a decision to table Z 2023-62. Do I have a motion from any of you?
Chairman, I make a motion that we table Z 2023-62 until our October 30th Commissioners meeting.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries, sir. Back to you.
Motion carries to table. Thank you. Next agenda item, please. Oh, yeah. Untable it, yeah. Can I get a motion to untable S 2023-57?
Mr. Vice Chair, I make a motion to untable S 2023-57.
Can I get a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I get a vote, please? All in favor? Raise your hand. Thank you. Now decision to untable 20-23-57.
Commissioners, we have a motion, or excuse me, a decision to untable S 2023-57 from the Planning and Zoning Board. Do I have a motion from you?
Motion to untable.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, good evening. So as most of you remember, this is the request to have storage containers on the property and be able to store fireworks. And we had to do a little homework to make sure everything was lined up. So what I can confirm this evening is that, first of all, we did communicate with the state and the I guess it's Mr. Jason Pritchett, who is the manager for the Hazardous Materials Program with the Office of Commissioner Insurance and Safety Fire, sent an email back to me saying that this particular classification of fireworks and the amounts that they're doing is not covered by that rule, so they don't have to have a state-approved plan, and that the number of the pounds of firework that are being stored is not covered by outdoor storage, so that they're okay to be able to store this outdoors. The other item that we needed to update you on, they do have a signed lease now, so they can in fact store their inventory on the property, which is one of the other requirements. We didn't want to have storage on a property that's third parties, doesn't belong there. And then the last item is they have submitted a genuinely improved site plan to show where the storage containers will be and that the fencing will go up around it. And this will clean up the kind of sort of ramshackle way that the containers were on the property before and allow this to be straightened up in terms of how code enforcement went out there to cite them for the grass and the tall grass and the weeds and the other trash that was out there. So the three items that they needed to address have been updated. And staff can now show you the modified recommendations, having improved the property and the site plan. Staff's recommending approval, having all the conditions changed now for what they're doing. They meet all the requirements, and the staff would suggest that they recommend approval of S 2023-57 with the following findings and conditions. A, that the use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. B, the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive future land use plan categorization of this property as within the community village center area, incorporating a mixed commercial, residential, and industrial uses. And the use will not negatively impact the surrounding properties, and the granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare. And the conditions we would like to put on, there's several we still would like to have, so that condition number 1, any other use of the property not identified within section 210, uses allowed in each zoning district, specifically the table 2.2, uses allowed by right, and 2.3, uses, accessory uses allowed by right, as identified in the UDC, may require the submission, review, and approval of a new special use permit. Number 2, the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration the site-specific development and access management plans to address the development standards in the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed by staff in the report dated September 6, 2023. Number 3, that the outdoor storage is in a fenced, secure area with appropriate screening and landscaping as required under Section 305, and the incompatible zoning setbacks as required under Article 8, is authorized for all materials and inventory for the associated principal businesses. And number 4, no storage of equipment, inventory, or material is authorized for businesses or third parties not currently a principal business at this address. Number 5, that the applicant shall schedule an on-site inspection with Douglas County Code Enforcement within the next 30 days to provide verification that the stored inventory is in fact the property of a principal business located at this address, and the code violation citations have been properly remediated. And with that recommendation, I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm now going to open a public hearing for anyone. That's true. We just untabled it, yeah. So I guess we go right to the vote. Any questions, concerns from the Planning and Zoning Board?
Mr. Vice Chair, I was just going to ask the applicant if he's in agreement with the findings.
Any other discussion? Planning and Zoning Board? Okay. Well, hearing the new conditions and the fact that they clarified and they did everything we asked for them to come back, untable it, can I get a recommendation?
Yes, sir. I make a motion that we approve S 2023-57 with the findings and conditions as read by staff.
I have a second as well. Great. Let's take a vote. In favor of approval of S 2023-57, raise your hand. Okay, Mr. Chairman, take it over to you. Unanimous approval, recommendation.
Thank you. We have a decision, Commissioners, from Planning and Zoning to approve S 2023-57. Do I have a motion from you? Yes, sir. Kelly.
Chair, make a motion to approve S 2023-57 with the conditions as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? We approved it 3-1, sir.
Okay. Approval of Z 2023-57. Thank you. Next agenda item.
All right, we have next on the agenda, item Z 2023-63. This is a rezoning for Impact Development Partners. This is a request for rezoning from RLD, which is our residential low density district, and CHC, that's heavy commercial with conditions, to a planned unit development. This is for a residential and commercial development located on Lee Road in Lithia Springs. This is in Commission District Number 1. So the applicant is requesting a rezoning to a PUD. This is to allow for a construction of a mixed-use community. Specifically, this is a community that will include 298 residential for-lease apartments. These will be spread over 9 buildings. 6 of the buildings will be 3 stories, and then 3 of the buildings will be 4 stories. And one of the 4-story buildings will contain a portion of ground floor retail space, and then that will open out onto a 4-acre public park with a lake and walking trail. And I will have images of that to show you in just a minute. In regard to the site plan, this does include a mix of apartments, commercial, and green space development. The overall density of the site is 15 units per acre. That's higher than what you could get under our residential high density, so that is part of the reason they are requesting the rezoning to a planned unit development. However, the scale and massing is compatible with some of the adjacent multifamily developments in the area, but those are actually in the city of Douglasville, so y'all are familiar with the way that the city of Douglasville has a boundary that kind of jogs in and out among county boundaries here, and so a lot of the existing residential at this similar scale and density is located in the city limits of Douglasville. However, we do find that the property is identified in a transitional area. It is adjacent to Interstate 20. There's a mix of commercial, industrial, and single-family residential in the area currently. The future land use map shows this as Community Village Center. So the Community Village Center classification is compatible with the proposed mixed-use zoning. This is also in a character area map that is traditional neighborhoods. So we do believe that the inclusion of the green space and the commercial space does help support the need for some additional mix of uses in our traditional neighborhoods in nodes that are specifically designated for that purpose. This property was previously rezoned, the majority of the property was previously rezoned to heavy commercial in anticipation of a shopping center that would have been a grocery store anchored shopping center to come into this location. That plan has never materialized. We did receive a proposal for a potential warehouse to come in on this property. That was withdrawn before it came for a vote of the Board of Commissioners. And the other thing that I want to mention about this area is that there was a concept plan completed in 2005 for the widening of Lee Road, and it did show a substantial impact to this property. So I want to make sure that I clarify approval of this road rezoning will indicate to staff that we are moving away from that alignment of Lee Road through the property. Director Rana would be more knowledgeable on this whole concept, more so than I would be. I know that they're looking at alternatives for what that alignment could be, but I just want to kind of make it expressly clear that it would be our understanding, if this rezoning were to be approved, that we would no longer be having a conversation about the potential realignment of Lee Road running through the middle of this property. In regard to public feedback, the applicants have worked with us to make sure that there was community engagement for this property. We had a community information meeting held on July 20th, 2023, and then a second one that was held on September 12th, 2023. We have received some mixed feedback from the community. Letters of opposition have been received, and they are included in the file for the meeting. I do believe you also have some people that are here to speak in regard to this. Most of the concerns have focused on the traffic impact, the potential for increased crime, and the transition to a more commercial and increased density. I would also like to say that the developers have been willing to modify their development to accommodate community concerns, and they can speak to that a little bit more during their presentation this evening. So here is the zoning map showing the mix of the heavy commercial as well as the portion of the property that is zoned residential. And this is just an aerial image showing its location on Lee Road. You can see it is mostly a wooded track. There are extensive areas of granite located on this property that has historically made it difficult to develop. So here is the view from Lee Road looking at the subject property. And then this is the view north on Lee Road showing kind of that transitional nature of the corridor with a mix of commercial and residential uses. This is the view looking south on Lee Road. So that's the view looking towards I-20. The subject property is going to be on the left. This is the view directly across the property on Lee Road, again showing that mix of residential and commercial uses. And then here is the view at the south of the property with the gas station and the Burger King and the convenience store located just south of the property. So this is also the view from South Sweetwater. And then South Sweetwater is adjacent to, though not directly across, from Beechwood Drive, from a primarily single-family residential neighborhood in that location. So here is the concept plan that shows the proposed green space to the south, and then the 9 buildings. The building farthest on the south of the property near the green space is going to be the one that has the proposed mix of commercial and residential. And then here is a more detailed concept plan. These are all included in your packet for this meeting. Some representative elevations. So this is the proposed clubhouse on the property, and you can see the floor plan for the clubhouse there, as well as a rendering of the proposed exterior of one of the buildings and layout of the floor plan. So staff has performed our analysis of this request, and we do find that it is substantially compatible with the zoning criteria in the code. Therefore, planning staff is recommending approval from the CHC and the RLD to the PUD, the plan unit development, with the following findings and conditions. Our findings are: number one, that the rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. Two, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan future land use category of commercial village center and the character area of traditional neighborhoods. Number three, the uses permissible in the zoning district are generally compatible with the sounding area. And four, the granting of the rezoning will not adversely impact public health, safety, or welfare. And we also recommend two conditions. These are conditions that you have seen in similar projects. Number one, the site development shall be governed by the standards submitted in the overall development plan submitted with the file of this application, and the overall site plan dated August 28, 2023, and submitted in the file of this application. The Unified Development Code shall govern in all areas not otherwise addressed by the overall development plan and overall development standards. And number two, the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration of the specific site development and access management plans to address the development standards in the UDC and the current concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated October 3rd, 2023. Requirements of the specific agency impact statements shall be deemed conditions of zoning approval unless the reviewing agency otherwise determines a suitable alternative in compliance with the UDC can be approved. And that concludes my report, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'm now going to open a public hearing. Anyone, including the applicant or their representative, wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Then make any comments you would like. You have 2 minutes per person for a total of 15 minutes.
Joe Fowler, Post Office Box 49, Douglasville, and I'm here with John Aiken, Kurt Adams. These are the gentlemen that I've been working with since January of this year when this project got started. This is a PUD that's been sort of like writing an encyclopedia because of the work we've been doing with staff. And it's actually been a joy to see this project come to the place where we have a good understanding of what the development side likes to see integrated with what the staff side see. We've had multiple neighborhood meetings with staff a great deal, but met twice with the neighbors, done everything we possibly could do to address the concerns, particularly the concerns by the DOT. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Aiken will talk generally about the project, and then we'll be prepared to respond to detailed questions.
Before you start, the conditions, are you in favor approval of the conditions?
We're in favor of the conditions.
All right, thank you.
John Aiken, 900 Circle 75 Parkway. Thank you, Board, Commissioners. We're very excited about this mixed-use opportunity to develop here on this site on Lee Road. It's got a combination, as Ms. Duncan pointed out, of apartments, public park, and commercial and retail component in the bottom of one of the buildings. We have worked closely with staff, working on multiple angles of concern in terms of addressing opportunities that we have for this project. Most importantly, one of the biggest concerns we heard from the community was around traffic in the area, and we've worked closely. We know there was a previous DOT plan. We have, as part of our application, dedicated right-of-way along Lee Road to plan for a future extension there, as well as a 50-foot right-of-way across the top of our property. We don't know if that's where DOT will come out in terms of its connection of Lee Road to Sweetwater, but we have agreed to dedicate that property across the top there. We've also worked with law enforcement in terms of security, which is another concern we heard, in terms of the sheriff's office, and we've agreed to put cameras. We would already have cameras throughout the property. We've agreed to put cameras at all of our entrances, and we're working with the same system, which is the system that the sheriff uses in order to connect those cameras to the other cameras that are part of the community. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor of this application? Please state your name and your address.
Yeah, Kurt Adams, 900 Circle 75 Parkway, Atlanta, Georgia, with Impact Development Partners here in favor. Happy to answer questions, part of the development team. Thank you.
Thank you.
We noted that the district commissioner, we've spoken to him a number of times about this, he's not here tonight. Is there any policy about not having the district commissioner when you consider an application like this? I just,
No, there's nothing that says you can't vote.
We have a quorum.
Oh, you have a quorum.
All right.
Yeah. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this application? Okay. Now I'm going to open up the floor to anyone to speak in opposition of this application. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, then make any comments you would like. You have 2 minutes per person, a total of 15 minutes.
My name is George Cloud, and I live walking distance from this property at 3207 Beechwood Drive. Was any of these recommendations handed out to the people that went to these 2 different meetings that these gentlemen had?
What do you mean recommendations? You mean the conditions and findings?
These recommendations here, were they passed out to the people?
Yeah, so go ahead and speak your comments. I don't know the answer to that, but you can go and speak your comments about it.
Well, I was at both meetings that we had, along with the multitude of people I think that's here today, and the general consensus is that we are not in favor of this thing for the simple fact that I don't think they've considered the safety of the people, the safety of the little children they're going to bring into our community right there, and the safety for the children going back and forth to school. This place is going to be walking distance to the schools, and they're going to be crossing a highway where they're running 40 and 50 miles an hour all day long up and down Lee Road. And that happens every day, several times a day. So I just don't think a lot of these things have considered the safety of what's going on down there. The idea that this is a good proposal is absolutely amazing when these gentlemen told us that they're going to be renting these apartments for anywhere from $1,600 to $1,800 a month in that area. Now, I have property that I rent everywhere, and I'm just absolutely flabbergasted that they can get that kind of money.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Your time is up, but thank you for your comments.
Well, we are not in favor of this ordeal.
Yes, sir. Anyone else like to speak opposition of this application? You have 2 minutes, sir. Please state your name and your address.
John Johnston, 2990 East Anderson Drive, Lithia Springs, Georgia 30122. I am opposed to the apartment complex in the public park for the following reasons. 1, increase in crime. 300 multifamily units and the public park will bring in people who have no vested interest in this neighborhood. The public park will be on private property and will not be overseen by state nor county and will become a gang haven. Currently, cars are speeding in excess of the 25 and 35 mile per hour limits on side streets in Mount Vernon, and this speeding will only increase in volume. 2, increase in noise levels. Noise levels at night, especially on weekends, will increase. Douglas County Sheriff's Department absolutely refuses to respond to noise complaints, and representatives from the Sheriff's Department have told me this on several occasions. 3, there's no need for additional apartment complexes in this area. There are currently 8 multifamily apartments within 1/2 mile of this proposed apartment. The applicant was asked about the current occupancy rate of these existing apartments, but they failed to provide an answer. 4, increase in traffic. Due to the 300 multifamily units in the public park, expect a minimum of 500 additional cars in our neighborhood. The property owners in this area moved here because of the peace, the quiet, and the low traffic density. We, the property owners, are the ones who will receive absolutely no benefits from the apartment complex and park. We, the property owners, will suffer the adverse consequences if this project goes through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of this application?
Chairman, my name's Manley Gilmer, and I live at 3207 Skyview Drive, Lithia Springs, 30122. And my hope is that the Board of Commissioners and the Planning and Zoning Committee takes into consideration the fact that even though it sounds like it's a fine project and there is deep concern about the traffic that's going to be felt there and the inevitable arrival of crime in that area will increase because we're having 295 apartments that are being developed there, some in 3 and 4 story buildings, and I'm sure they'll look good, but we are concerned about traffic too. I don't want to repeat all that's been said, but that's what really are the main concerns. So I really appreciate the boards of Commissioner and Planning and Zoning that you take in consideration those comments that I have made. And I have a list of the number of apartments already listed within that area, and there's about 13 groups. We saw a sign yesterday go up on Lee Road, that's just in my neighborhood, and there's townhouses going up there. So it's a competitive business these people are in, and I understand exactly how they feel. And I appreciate your listening to me about what was already said, and that I hope you'll take into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. How much more time do we have? Anyone else in opposition of this application? Please step forward.
Good evening. My name is John Britton, 2220 Charleston Place, Lithia Springs, Georgia. I come to oppose this because I recently moved to Lithia Springs, Douglasville, Douglas County, about 2 years ago, and I moved from Mableton with a lot of traffic, a lot of noise, just a lot, and I moved for quiet. And Lee Road is already extremely crowded. This will bring more crowds, more traffic, and I just feel like we have a duty as residents to have a voice, and I hope you all listen to our voice because we really, really do not want this to happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kelly King, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my husband, my family, my neighborhood, and my community. We are in fact asking, in fact, begging you to vote no and oppose the proposed apartment complex at Lee Road in South Sweetwater. My husband and I are longtime residents, and this proposed complex will be directly behind our neighborhood and home. Our neighborhood has had two meetings opposing this proposal, planning and zoning, but here we are with it being brought before you. We as a neighborhood attended those forums and asked, we attended forums for planning and zoning, and they asked what we would like to see in the area. There were two things we made clear: no apartments, no warehouses. 2 weeks after the report was issued, which is available on the Douglas County website, we received a notice from one of our neighbors regarding the first meeting with the firm who would like to build and planning and zoning. You can hopefully find how this felt like a slap in our face. We were asked for input, gave it, and received the appearance of a listening department. This was one more crushing blow to fragile trust in our county government. We attended the meetings, gave our reasoning loud and clear for almost 2 hours during the first meeting. We also spoke up for almost an hour at the second meeting. You're being told that we objected to the traffic. That is unequivocal simply not true. We object to the crime, the trash, and the total disregard for the surrounding neighborhoods. We've had several murders over the last few years tied to apartments in our area. One at Crestmart off of Skyview Road, and then one at the Sweet 16 party shooters was located at the apartments on Lee Road, right next to the new complex going up. We're being reminded every night at 9 p.m. to lock our car doors on Facebook by the sheriff. There are almost daily reports of car break-ins and a plethora of hotels down Blair Bridge and local neighborhoods. The crime has continually moved into our county from surrounding counties. Bringing 300 more apartments to our backyard is not a resolution. My family and I, as well as our neighbors, have spent our lives, hearts, money, and sweat and put it into our properties and our community. We raise families, go to church, as well as work here. We do not want to see it destroyed. It's a fact that apartments bring crime. After researching this last week, I have found that there are close to 3,000 apartments within a 3-mile radius of our neighborhood, probably more. Currently, another 300 to 500 apartments are being built a quarter mile away on Lee Road next to the interstate. Numbers do not lie.
Thank you.
I've only got one more, if you'll just bear with me. Between this proposed apartment complex and the new one already going up across the interstate within sight of this property, that is another 25% increase in apartments alone with that radius. This does not include the hundreds, probably thousands, with all the construction going up on Fairburn Road. Our county does not have the infrastructure for it. We're being told that it could be 2030 before the road situation is addressed around the proposed site. We also know there's a shortage of deputies. Crime is already up. There seems to be a mentality of we'll build it and then we'll figure it out later. No, we don't want the crime, trash, congestion on the streets in our neighborhoods and community. We've had enough. The statistics that I found at District 1 is at 61% rental, which the county rate is close to 40% as of 2020. That's not smart planning. I spoke to Chief Pounds this past Saturday at September Saturdays, who said I could quote him, and he asked that I do so. Quote, apartments bring crime. He's not against growth, but smart growth, and nothing has been smart about any of these apartments. We don't have the infrastructure to deal with the thousands of people that have been and will continue to flood the county, end quote. I've talked to teachers as well as bus drivers who live in our neighborhood who said the schools have had enough. They can't take any more children. There must be a point where enough is enough and citizens are actually listened to and not just outside interest. We're tired of banging our heads against the wall and our pleas falling on deaf ears. Please help us and be our voice of reason. Please vote no for the proposed apartment complex. And I thank you for your consideration.
All right. Okay. We just have time for this one more. We just have time for just one more.
Okay. We have a elementary school. Bethia Springs has one elementary school. We have one junior high and high school. Now, I want you to tell me what you're going to advertise for parents and the schools being good. You need to ask yourself that.
Ma'am, please address us.
We are hurting for schools. The lady just told you she has an 11th grader graduating this week. I have 3 great grands in these schools, and they can't even have gym activities in the gym in junior high because they cannot control the students. Already, this is my experience, and asking these people to please have mercy on these students.
Thank you.
Good, we didn't get a name.
We need you. Where you live, Ethel?
All right, well, thank you. At this point, I'm going to close the public hearing. Ask for any questions from the Planning and Zoning Board.
Can we get the applicant up? I know you have heard the concerns of the residents in the area. Now, I know they had talked about the price point that you would have. What was your projected price point for that area, for those apartments?
Yes, sir. We have a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, approximately 60% ones, 30% twos, 10% threes. The average price point across all of the project is projected to be $1,700. The range is $1,400 to $1,500 up to the low 2000s.
Okay.
Class A, high quality apartments.
Okay. I know that they also talked about the density in traffic. The traffic would increase there. I know that there's a DOD requirement, and I know you talked about safety, meaning camera systems. Are y'all looking at having any type of, since the apartments, courtesy officers at that facility, at that apartment complex? Have you also talked with local law enforcement about the impact that's going to cause in that neighborhood as well, in that community?
Let me take that in multiple parts.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will have a courtesy officer on the property. That's typical for our properties, 1 to 2 courtesy officers staying in the apartments. We'll have a camera system within the apartment. We've also, as I mentioned, worked with the sheriff's department, spoken with the sheriff's department about putting the flock system at the entrances, which connects to the existing network of cameras that can read the license plates of cars to monitor everyone that's going in and out of our community. It will be professionally managed by a third-party institutional property manager that will have staff on site to oversee the property.
Okay, and I'm gonna have one more, and then I'm gonna pass it on to some of my other colleagues because I know they got questions about the park that's gonna be located there. Is the park gonna be accessible to just the residents that live in the community, or is it gonna be accessible to anyone in the area?
So as currently proposed, it's a privately owned public park. It's 4 acres. It includes walking trails and a water feature, as well as a gazebo and a dog park. We have talked to city staff about that because there's mixed opinions in the community of whether they want a park or a public park or don't want a public park. We are open to making it private only to our residents if that's of major concern. I believe that's included in the staff report. It's currently proposed as a public park, privately owned. We're happy to make it either way if there's a leaning on that.
Okay, I'm gonna pass it on to some of my colleagues. I have no other further.
Any other questions about the planning and zoning?
I have a question, Vice Chair, for Ms. Duncan.
Yes, ma'am.
Allison, did I hear someone mention that at some point in the past, the county proposed to change the width of Lee Road or divert traffic or do a roundabout on this property?
So the county is currently working on a process to look at what the options for improving the traffic along Lee Road is. Director Rana, I think, could speak to that if he doesn't mind. Is that?
Yes, ma'am. Lee Road is an active federal aid project that we are basically in design for. This project was recently picked up as of last year. Back in 2004, 2005, there was a concept study done which showed an alternative which realigned Lee Road from where it is today to using this parcel and then connecting or intersecting with South Sweetwater. So that was an option back then. Our current evaluation is underway. So we can't say for sure that this would be an acceptable option in today's time, but it would certainly be one of the active options in the list. And as far as our active process goes, it goes through data collection, projections, and then state mandated evaluation process that would dictate our eventual concept alternative for the current project, which we won't have until next year.
Before you leave, was a traffic study done for that area based on the amount of apartments that was going to be there?
The only traffic study we've done was back in 2004 and 5. It did not include the apartments specifically, but the general growth projection that we do is for 20 years for our regular transportation projects. Back in 2004-5, it showed a projection of roughly above 25,000 daily users for this Lee Road South Sweetwater segment.
But that's current, not with the proposal by what the DOT is planning on doing, the state's planning on doing with Lee Road expansion.
Right, that was general, that did not include what's happening today, currently, but when we're speaking for, the high amount of volumes, we have about 25 to 28,000 daily riders. This building brings in roughly less than 500 riders, so it's not a big change to our planned improvements.
Okay.
If I may, we did do a traffic study with the impacts of this project on the thing, which is included in the staff evaluation. Also on the Lee Road expansion, while the DOT hasn't landed on a specific plan, as I was trying to address earlier, we've been working closely with them to help resolve the potential solutions for that traffic problem. So we have agreed to dedicate a portion of our property along Lee Road to provide for the expansion on our side of the street, as well as proactively a 50-foot right-of-way portion across the top of our property. The property, if you recall from the picture, kind of shapes a little narrower at the top. It's a 50-foot right-of-way that would allow DOT, should they choose that to be a solution, to connect with a traffic light Lee Road to Sweetwater across our property. So that's, both of those are included in our application and our current recommendations.
I have a question. I understand that that particular area, there hadn't been a lot of growth or development because there's a lot of granite there. How are you going to work around that?
Yes, sir, that's correct. The northern portion of the property has a significant amount of granite, and the southern portion of the property had historically an old lake which had been filled in. So when you're looking to develop something like a grocery anchored shopping center or a warehouse that was proposed previously, those can really come into play because of what you've got to do around that rock and that lake. The benefit we have of putting in a mixed use development like we're proposing is we're able to basically bring that lake back to life and turn it into a feature. It provides water retention for the project, but also creates a water feature with walking trails around it and a gazebo, as I mentioned. On the rock and the granite, fortunately for an apartment complex, when you're building individual buildings, you can lay the building foundation on top of the granite, so it does not require a lot of blasting or digging or anything like that on the granite portion of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Planning and zoning? I have a question. Ms. Duncan, can you put up the rendering again? Kind of get a visual.
The rendering of the building, or did you want the site plan?
The site plan. Yeah, that one. Right. Okay. He mentioned that due to the Lee Road project, they are allocating 50 feet. Is that what you said? Right away, 50 feet right away?
It's actually, this is a little harder to see on this colored version, but the northern half of the property from our entrance, that's a little easier. We've dedicated right away along Lee Road to basically extend the widening of Lee Road, which is already in place on the southern portion to the northern portion. And then that 50-foot portion I was talking about is right there at the top of that drawing right there.
Okay.
Across in front of those buildings, connecting Lee Road. If DOT chooses to go that way, they could put a lane in, a traffic light, and connect Lee Road to Sweetwater there as opposed to the three.
What about Lee Road itself? I mean, what if they wanted to, which they're doing everywhere else, they're widening it, what if they need some more right away?
We've included that. We've basically included a dedication of the part of the property that would allow them to widen.
My question was, how many feet are you?
I think it's 30 feet, yes.
30 feet, just 30?
30
okay.
Along Lee Road, which is what you need on that side of the project.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right, so you already kind of got a setback enough that you're able to accommodate 30 feet. Okay, thank you. One other question with the DOT, so you didn't do a recent study. The study you have now is from '05, is what I think you said, right?
Right, we're currently doing a new study. We do have a traffic study for this specific site development from the developers, and that's all we have for now.
When would that be concluded, do you know?
Our project study, that I believe we'll have the traffic study by earlier next year and a preferred alternative by mid next year.
Would it be advantageous or smart to not move forward on this until this study is complete? So, because you might need more than 35 feet, right? You might need 100 feet right away there.
No, sir, I think 30 feet is sufficient for the time being, and when the time comes, if there's more right-of-way needed, we go through our right-of-way acquisition to pick up what's left. But with 30 feet dedicated, it's highly unlikely that we'll need more, given the widening of the existing section.
Okay. Because like Ms. Duncan said, if this is approved, that's saying that we won't need, in this case, more than what they allocated. Or, yeah, clarify that, please.
Sorry, what I had said is that there is a concept plan from 2005 that sort of shows the road jogging kind of through the middle of this project. We are acknowledging that right now we are in the middle of the study, right? We do not know what the preferred alignment is going to be. However, we wanted to state it up front. We will take that as direction from the board that if you approve the zoning, it is not the intent to run the road through the middle of this project. That would be a very difficult thing to accomplish once the zoning is in place for this project. So that was what I wanted to put on the table, was an acknowledgement that we do have that 2005 concept. We're in the middle of studying whether or not that makes sense or if we need to move with a different alignment. We do not have that answer for you today. So we wanted to make sure that we're very transparent and upfront about that.
Okay.
Does that help clarify?
That does. I have another question for the applicant. So, semantics now. Have you purchased a property yet, or this is a condition?
No, sir, it's under contract. This is a condition.
This is a condition. Okay, so you haven't purchased it yet. The reason I asked that question is it just seemed more prudent to see why the study comes about before you make this purchase, just because you don't know. You don't know if they need more or, you know, what the outcome is going to be. Would you agree?
I hear your point. The study was done in 2005, and nothing has happened with it. And I think predominantly part of that reason, not to speak for DOT, is they're working through different solutions. That road was shown going right through that granite we mentioned earlier, which would be a very expensive solution to try and cut the road across through that granite on that end of the property.
So you're willing to take the gamble then that 30 feet is going to be enough?
We believe 30 feet is enough along Lee Road, and we also, we've been working with DOT on this. This is not just us guessing. We have traffic engineers as well. But then the 50 foot across the top is a new concession that we've put in to allow for a potential solution that actually is more efficient to cut across Sweetwater.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Planning and zoning? Turn it over to the Board of Commissioners.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? Commissioner Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be, I want to, two things. I do want to address, I think it was Attorney Fowler's point about having representation. Right. Where's your district commissioner? And it's not to be, this matters. There's been major matters that are going forward. You have to want to do this job. I'm District 2. I'm right up Street Lee Road. I'm going to come to y'all in a minute. But I get it. You can't play off. You can't be out of the room. It's unfair for us to carry it. We could. Maybe we won't. But this matters. This is for y'all to show up like, I get it. Like, oh, wow. You got to own this. You got to be mature. You guys, you're voiceless. I get it. Who gonna cast a vote on behalf of the great state of Georgia, the great District 1? But I get it. I digress. Now, I get this. Now, I heard some comment. I'm gonna get into the commentary. Two things. Director Rana, come on down. I need my Director of Transportation. I'm just gonna address it from that perspective. I won't get into the political narrative. It's not necessary for this. But I do want, for y'all's sake, because I am Chair of Transportation, this is the director. I'm speaking, and I'm just making a general point. If you think about, I've been here since 1990. I first lived on, what do you call it, right there off of Skyview. Been there. Yes, I live in Avonlea off of Riverside right now. I'm blind. What am I do at a house? I pay $1,800. Ooh, there's no crime over there, and I feel pretty safe walking around. I have no peace. Good. Hold on. But my point being, I'm back to transportation. So since I came in office in 08, he mentioned 04. This has been on the books. Where has been your representation? You can go back and look at every video. We have talked about the expansion of Lee Road. We're going to widen this thing and we're going to extend it. Do y'all know that's about to become the east-west connector? all the way over to Chapel Hill, all the way over to Highway 5. It's going to be a loop up under the city of Douglasville. The very first gentleman, I get it, notification. Who talked to y'all? But it's already in motion. The reason that they didn't go, y'all were first up, but because it was residential, they decided, okay, we're going to play off of this. We're going to build the bridge first, widen it. Then we're going to go up to Fairburn Road. That was phase 2. Y'all were first. And more than likely, we'll probably extend that thing all the way over to Chapel Hill before we get to y'all because it's residential. I get it. I get it. Not could we do it, should we do it? I'll take that up later, like, okay, guys, we're going to put about $1.3 million into this. I'm hearing their voice. Should we do this? I'm only dealing with congestion. The rest of it, I'm going to leave that to your commissioner to deal with that. Director Rana, how far along are we really with this? Okay, don't reach out. Don't let that go now. That wasn't the point. All right, that's not what this is about. I wasn't talking about that. We're talking about voice. Director Rana, can you help me out?
Yes, sir. We started this project back up November of last year. We're still in data collection and projection and evaluation process. We will have a concept report by mid to end next year for this subject project.
All right. So we've had, several town halls. We've had transportation meetings. I've had at least probably, 12 over time that anybody can come hear this. It wasn't just this year. Again, this has been on the books for a long time. Pay attention. Right? Like now once it hits your backyard, either you're ideologically opposed or not in your backyard that you will weigh in. I got you. Don't offend the guy that's actually got your back. All right. I'm going to yield for right now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comment? Commissioner Alcaraz.
Just one question. Let me start with Allison first. Allison, how many apartment complexes do we have? I've heard a lot being thrown out there. How many do you have knowledge of being in that area?
In that area, I mean, it depends on how far geographically you're looking.
Say half a mile.
So I would say most of the ones that are currently in that area are in the city of Douglasville, right within the city limits of Douglasville, including the one that is currently under construction now. I believe the closest in proximity would be kind of over in the West Fork area, kind of like off Skyview, Mount Vernon, and then near West Fork. We have a couple over in that. I think that would geographically be the closest for apartment complexes comparable to this that would be an unincorporated Douglas County. I don't know if you have any other information contrary, but I think that's probably where the closest ones are in unincorporated Douglas County.
Okay. Then this question is for the applicants. How long do you plan on owning that property, owning that apartment complex? Your company?
Our company would typically own the property from 3 to 7 years.
Okay. I yield, Chair.
Okay. We yield back, sir.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the presentations and discussions concerning this matter. Do you have a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Vice Chair, to deny Z 2023-63.
Motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Chairman, I second.
Have a motion and a second to deny application. I'm sorry. C 2023-63. I get a vote, please. All in favor, raise your hand for denial. Two. Okay. We have two, so the motion did not carry. Do you have another motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023-63 project that we're discussing.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Oh.
With the condition as outlined by staff.
So again, will you restate your motion?
I make a motion to approve Z 2023-63 with the conditions outlined by staff.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I second.
Have a second? I'd like to take a vote for the approval of Z 2023-63. All in favor of approval, raise your hand. Motion carries 3-2. For approval of Z 2023-63.
Board of Commissioners, we have an approval of Z 2023-63 from the Planning and Zoning Board. Do you have? Yes, sir.
No, just quick point of order, and just for respect for the public, your commissioner is Ricky Dobbs Jr., appointed by the governor of this great state to represent your interests. And so I think that's important. I take this serious. You have to vote. You have to show up. I know life happens. We have accidents. Stuff happens. You got family. I get this, but I get this quite often where people get convenient when it comes to voting. You got to be able to look your citizens in the eye and take a position. Now, here we are sitting here. But the person, when you talk about home rule, separation of feds versus state, well, just like here at the local level, like, okay, well, the district gets to drive this. What do we do? I just wanted to clarify that, just for the record. I respect that, but still, let's make sure we get it right. I yield, Mr. Chair, your call.
Thank you. In regard to Z 2023-63, do we have a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny Z 2023-63.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. All in favor of denying Z 2023-63, raise your hand. All opposed?
Make a vote.
We have we have voted in favor of denying it. Well, that's unanimous now. So we unanimously deny Z 2023-60.
All right, application Z 2023-63 is denied. Next application, please.
Next application is S2023-64, a special use permit. The applicant is GOM Printing and Signs. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow the installation of a changeable copy sign in CG General Commercial located at 2134 Fairburn Road, Douglasville 30135. Before you, I have the zoning map. It is currently zone CG with a highway corridor overlay. This is the aerial image of the property. The property is highlighted in red. This is a survey of the property. And before you, I have the current sign to the left and the proposed changeable sign to the right. Based on the analysis conducted, it does meet the criteria. Staff recommends approval of the requested special use permit S2023-64 with the following findings and directed to staff. Findings: the use will not substantially modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of Douglas County Unified Development Code. The use will not negatively impact surrounding properties. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you. I will now open up the public hearing. Anyone in favor and wishes to speak with application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, then make any comments that you would like. You have 2 minutes per person, a total of 15 minutes. The applicant not here? Okay. All right, so I'm going to close and open up for an opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, then make any comments you would like. You have 2 minutes per person, a total of 15 minutes. All right, seeing no one moving, I will now close the public hearing. Planning and zoning, you have any questions from staff?
I just wanted to ask staff, Ms. Duncan, or Mr. Is it the staff's opinion that this digital sign would be dangerous for drivers along that corridor with the changing of the sign? Is that why the staff is opposed to approving this?
Staff is recommending approval of the sign. The sign will still have to meet the code of ordinance regulation as far as changeable signs go.
So staff is not in opposition?
No, staff is not in opposition.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
Excuse me, did the applicant know to be here or that's requested?
Yes, the applicant was notified.
Yeah, the sign from the place. I have a question for you. Will you finish?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, if this was heavy commercial zoned, then this wouldn't even be an issue. Is that right? Or heavy commercial, light industrial? This wouldn't even be an issue.
Yes,
they could put a digital sign up if it was zoned a little bit higher than general commercial, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So this is primarily because of the zoning of it, not the sign itself.
That is correct.
So the DOT had any issue with the signage? Because I guess it's some type of visual hazard that the concern is as far as the zoning?
No, sir. This being on Fairburn, state has its own regulations on color, reflectivity, and all of those matters that ensure driver safety. So as long as those are abided by, there are no safety concerns. And then there's another concern of the offset distance from the travelway.
Mm-hmm.
That too will be ensured that it's at a safe distance from the road. And as far as those are concerned, that's all we look for.
So are they going to keep the sign where it is and just change the sign, or are they moving the sign itself? Because there's currently a regular sign there now.
Yes, that is correct. There's currently a regular sign there. This is the sign on the left, what is currently there.
I was wondering, are they going to just?
It is under
so is the DOT? I guess is the requirement saying it has to move, inward somewhat, or same location?
It would be my assumption that they would remove the old sign and put the new sign in the same place.
Okay, so not sure. Okay, I meant as far as any regulations saying that it need to be some kind of setback to this.
There is a setback. We call it the clear zone, and
Okay.
as long as it's outside of that clear zone, they can put it back in the same place. And I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this one was outside the clear zone. Otherwise, we would have had pointed it out.
Okay.
Are there other digital signs along that corridor you're aware of? Like at the the police department?
Yeah, the police department has.
So there's already one at the police department?
Yes.
Which is in the city limit. Is that right? They overlap. So I think that's the city limit. No, that's the county where the police
That's
station.
city of Douglasville.
Yes,
That's the city of Douglasville?
Yes, ma'am.
What about the sheriff's department? What is that? That's in the
That's city.
That's also in the city of
And I think they also have a digital sign that's along the same corridor.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from planning and zoning?
I have a question for staff. We've had this situation before when individual didn't show up. But should we table this or deny it?
Although it is recommended the applicant come, however, it is not required the applicant be here in order for the board to vote.
So with that being said, the regulations that you quoted, state regulation that you quoted, who's going to check to make sure that is adhered to? In other words, he has some conditions on there, and you said is, how the intensity of the light, the luminance of the light, I guess, and different things like that. Who checks to make sure that the luminance is not too bright, for example?
Code enforcement.
Okay.
They regulate our signs.
Okay. All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Planning and zoning, any other questions? Okay. Turn it over to the Board of Commissioners.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or statements?
For the sake of keeping this meeting moving along, I have no questions.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to you, sir. We have no questions.
Thank
or
you.
No comments.
Planning and zoning, you've heard the presentation by staff. Have a recommendation?
Mr. Vice Chair, I make a recommendation to approve S 2023-4 with any conditions that the staff read.
We'll have a motion to approve S 2023-64. Do I?
Second.
You have a second? Thank you. I have a recommendation and a second. Can I get a vote, please? All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Board of Commissioners, the carries as unanimous vote for approval.
Board of Commissioners, we have a decision by Planning and Zoning to approve S 2023-64. Have any recommendation, motion, or comment?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve S 2023-64 as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board with its conditions.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed. And the only reason I'm opposing it is I think you ought to, if you've got enough interest in having something to come before the Planning and Zoning Board, I think you ought to have enough interest to be here. We are. Right? But anyway, it passes. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so Z 2023-64 approved.
Amen.
So for the record.
All right, so the final thing we have on the agenda tonight are some text amendments. If we're holding up and feel like we're in the mood for some text amendments. So we have brought forward several amendments. This is the first of a set that we're going to be bringing to you between now and the end of the year. So these are amendments to address some policy changes to align with the comprehensive plan. These are also to correct some areas of potential conflict among code sections. And so I will not get into a level of detail that may be difficult to process at this time in the evening. But just broadly, Article 1, we have a text amendment to clarify the process of road right-of-way abandonment to align with several other changes that we have made in the Unified Development Code previously. In Article 2, this is where we're kind of dealing with some policy changes for the comprehensive plan. So we're looking specifically at warehouses and self-storage units. We're going to have transition that to requiring a special use permit in all zoning districts is what we're proposing. Currently, right now, it is a special use permit in the heavy commercial zoning district, but in the industrial districts, they're permitted by right. So we are recommending to align with the comprehensive plan policy and the feedback we received from the community that they would require a special use permit in any zoning district where they're allowed. The other thing, and I have this highlighted in yellow because this is one of those things that is a substantial policy change, again, to align with the comprehensive plan. If we need time to think about this, we can always table these text amendments and bring them forward later. But we are proposing in the code to make an amendment that in your industrial zoning districts, any building that exceeds 50,000 square feet requires a special use permit. So right now, you can get up to 1 million square feet by right in our light industrial and our heavy industrial zoning districts. So we are recommending that we say that if you are already zoned that, you can do up to 50,000 square feet by right. And 50,001 square feet, you have to come in for a special use permit just to ensure transparency for the community so that they understand what's happening in their community. That is a pretty big policy shift, and so wanted to make sure that I highlight that, to call that out. These are amendments that are largely in regard to things that come up repeatedly, the convention centers and the special event facilities. We've made some amendments to those because, again, this is something that we've seen come to the board several times. We've seen you take action consistently on that, and so we're amending the code to align with the direction that we see from the Board of Commissioners. Also, personal care homes is something where we feel our code is a little bit out of date. So we are, right now, to have a personal care home in a residential district, that has to be owner occupied. The owner of the property actually has to live in the house to provide a personal care home. The biggest amendment to this is to allow for an applicant to come and petition for a special use permit to allow them to not be the resident of the house. So this is a request that we get very frequently. We have typically turned that down. There is no path forward other than to have owner occupied to be in a residential district. And so we are just giving people a path forward to ask to the Board of Commissioners if they could be approved. So we're proposing that modification to the code. In Article 4, I have the first 3 items highlighted because we're clarifying the easement standards. Now, for the sake of full transparency, there is going to be a preliminary plat before this commission in October where there is some concern about the interpretation of the DOT requirements, specifically whether or not a road and other commensurate improvements are required. And a lot of that is because of the use of the word in Article 5, commonly. So currently, right now, we say road improvements are commonly required in major subdivisions. And so in Article 5, as well as in Article 4, we are proposing some changes to make it clear that in major subdivisions, which is basically something that creates over 6 lots, technically over 3 lots in certain circumstances, you're going to have to come in and you're going to have to put a road. If you're not an exempt subdivision or an administrative approval, if you kind of get over that minimum number that's allowed, you have to come and put a road in. So I just wanted to be very transparent about that, that there is a project that will come before you. The change in the amendment is not necessarily going to impact this project. We already have the plat submitted. It's already vested and moving through the process. But I did want to make it clear that that's specifically what those are in reference to. You have the copies of the amendments. So other than those things that I have highlighted, I'm happy to, kind of address anything specifically that you may see in any of the other articles or concerns about that. They're relating to minimum lot sizes for townhomes, standards for cluster mailboxes, and a whole variety of kind of minutia to reflect kind of certain standards that we have had to sort of tweak as we've moved through the process. But otherwise, I'm going to pause right there and say we are presenting the amendments to Article 1 through 6, as well as Article 15, again, to change that definition as we have identified previously in Article 5. And I'm going to just pause and see if there's any questions or any public hearing in regard to what is proposed. So
thank you. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone want approval of and wish to speak this application or these amendments, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, then make any comments that you would like. You have 2 minutes per person, total 15 minutes. Seeing no movement. Anyone in opposition and wishing to speak in opposition of these amendments, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, then make any comments that you would like. You have 2 minutes per person, a total of 15 minutes. Okay. Seeing no movement, I'm going to close the public hearing. Ms. Duncan, I do have a question for you. Back with Article 2, in my line of work, this is going to affect some people. Could affect some of my clients. Is it, you were saying that light industrial currently you go up to 1 million square feet, and now you're proposing 50 square feet, 500, I'm sorry, what did you say?
50,000 square feet without a special use permit. Right. Anything above 50,000 square feet, you would have to come and ask the Board of Commissioners for a special use permit. Okay, when would that take effect? Is that grandfather? If you got a plat already in, or if you already been approved 6 months ago? When does that take effect? So the text amendment would take effect upon adoption.
Okay.
There are projects that we are currently working with that are already moving through the process, and we would kind of continue to move those through the process where they are. But most of those basically are requiring rezonings. So they're having to come for the board anyhow for a zoning action.
Okay.
This is meant to apply only to those, basically to anything that has not already going through the DRC review process.
Okay. So new applicants, so not, for the most part, new applicants.
This would come into effect for new applicants. There is a provision under Article 1 of the code that if you're already kind of working on something and the code changes, you have 6 months, by which we can kind of look back at the old code and say, okay, you were far enough along in the process that we're going to let you come in under the old standards.
Okay.
But like I said, the projects that are mostly on my radar going forward are coming to this board anyhow for some sort of zoning action anyhow.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, planning and zoning?
I have a question, Mr. Vice Chair, for Alice. Did I hear you say that at the October 30th meeting, something is going to present that these changes will impact?
It will not be at the October 30th meeting. It will be at the October 16th and 17th Board of Commissioners meeting. So it is not a change that's coming to the Planning and Zoning Board. It is a plat that is going to be presented, and want to be very transparent and open about that. So if the will of the board is to defer this until after we hear that, that's completely fine with staff. But, as we kind of alluded to, there is that 6-month provision, that 6-month provision that if you're already kind of working with us and the code changes, we're going to honor the code that you were submitted under. So like I said, in my mind, this is not going to impact, that project that's already moving through the system.
So the change about the warehouses getting a special permit if it's 50,000 square feet or more, that's only to inform the community of the significant change in size? Is that why this change is coming?
I mean, it is absolutely for the sake of transparency, but beyond that, I think that what we have seen is that this type of development brings impacts that are beyond, just kind of the specific parcel. We have a number of complaints that we heard through the comprehensive plan process about truck traffic, particularly trucks getting into neighborhood areas and, kind of trucks slowing down traffic on major arterials. And so I think that is kind of where staff is approaching this. We've also heard, in petitions that have come before this board, that we need more of that kind of smaller space for entrepreneurs, contractors, kind of that maker business, and we don't have a lot of that. Currently, a lot of what we're getting are the proposals for things that are several 100,000 square feet, and along with that, comes not only to the impact to the public, but the impact to the roads, as well as, other environmental concerns and things of that nature. So again, we're just kind of trying to put a little bit more of a check and balance in place on that type of development, because we have taken a lot of that type of development historically, and we just kind of want to hit pause and make sure that we're not kind of letting too much of this move forward without taking the opportunity to kind of knit some of those pieces of our community back together that, have developed very rapidly.
The other changes that you mentioned, one was the personal care home. Currently, our code requires the owner or operator or someone to reside in that home.
So if it is an in-home personal care home, so basically if it's coming into our residential zoning district, our requirement is that you have to be owner occupied. So it's not just that you have a full-time caregiver. If you are over the 6 individuals, then that's what kicks it into a category that's more appropriate for commercial use, and you are allowed to have a resident caregiver that doesn't have to be the owner of the property. But right now, in single-family neighborhoods, if somebody wanted to come in, if they were owner-occupied, they could, by right, just come in and start this business. What we're proposing is that there is a special use process for somebody who wants to operate this but does not live in the property full-time. They will still have to have a full-time resident caregiver, but it doesn't have to be owner-occupied as it currently is now, and that's only with special use permit approval.
And the other changes that are being proposed are recent projects that have come before the Board of Commissioners. They have leaned in one direction, and now you're going to change the code to reflect their wishes.
So, for example, the convention centers, that's definitely one where we've seen the board take the same action multiple times, and so we're proposing an amendment to the code to reflect the action that we've seen the board take. Something like, for example, in Article 4, we're revising the minimum lot size standards to 1,000 square feet. That's not something that's come before the board, but right now our minimum lot size for townhomes is 2,400 square feet, so it makes for this really long, narrow, skinny lot with a little bit of a front yard and a little bit of a backyard. What we're proposing is that a townhome is a minimum of 1,000 square feet. That's basically a 20 by 50, which is a fairly standard and generous size for a townhome. And that's the size lot that you have to go with your townhome development so that we don't get into these big, long, skinny lots. I think the 2,400 square feet is just kind of an older provision that historically hasn't been updated. So that's not something we've seen the board act on necessarily. That's just an issue in the code that we see from an administrative perspective as staff. Part of the reason we support this is because a lot of our townhome projects are having to come in as condominiums. So we generally support platting of single-family fee simple properties, right, so that they can be owner occupied, which is, we know, is the path to wealth building. Right now, we're kind of forcing a lot of these projects into condominiums. So we would like to see the ability for them to be platted as individual lots and sold.
And on Article 4, Division 4, overlay districts, what is the change there?
That you're looking at on the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
We did not make any changes at this time. We ran an abundance of caution, everything that we thought we possibly could change, just to make sure that's covered, because you know we have to publish the agenda and run legal ads previously. I don't believe I have any provisions to the overlay districts at this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions from planning and zoning? All right. I'm going to kick it over to the Board of Commissioners.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? Vice Chair Carson.
Get our questions. So the time we can edit.
So if you table it, you could table it to the October 3rd would be our next regular meeting, if that gives you enough time. Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend.
Today is October.
You mean
30th.
30th.
October.
Okay. Say I couldn't hear. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I've got to have more information myself. This is a lot to absorb, and I don't know. I know what it's titled, but I don't know enough about what it means. All in favor of tabling it?
Just point of order. Typically, the planning and zoning goes first. Kick it over to you.
That's fine with me.
It doesn't matter.
Right ahead. No.
Does it matter? I don't know if it even really matters.
Point of order. I'd like to hear the county attorney who's ever back there waiting on this. It is the Board of Commissioners. Got right to it, but what is the point of order? I'd like to know what it is.
Yeah. That's how we normally do it. I don't know. We just go ahead and just let me pick it up.
The code provides that the Board of Commissioners acts upon recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Board. So I would say that the Planning and Zoning Board should act first. However, the Board of Commissioners is not bound by the Planning and Zoning Board.
All right. Okay. You know that.
Is that responsible?
Trying to get out of here, right? All right, Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard all of the amendments to the UDC. You'll have a recommendation.
Mr. Vice Chair, I make a recommendation to table the UDC amendments until the October 30th Planning and Zoning Board of Commissioner meeting.
Or Curry, second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Have a vote. All in favor? Turn it over as a unanimous decision to table the UDC recommendations amendments till the 30 October meeting. Mm-hmm.
Board of Commissioners, Planning and Zoning come up with this great idea to table 1030 dash, excuse me.
Yeah, you're right.
Where is it?
1030.
UDC amendments.
Yeah.
I have a motion from you.
Motion again. Table.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right. Uh-oh. Sorry. Go
Yes.
ahead.
No, I'll be very quick. No, I mean, but the board can adjourn a meeting at any time. Parliamentary Rules 101. It's the highest order. The chairman could have just hit that gavel and this meeting would have been over. There's times in which they don't make a recommendation, but I get it. I just want to make sure we get it right now for the floor. We could have ended it, but are you back? We got to go.
Okay, where were we? We got a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes, and I bet you're about to say.
All right. We're going to table to the 30 October Planning and Zoning Combined BOC meeting. Planning and Zoning, you're adjourned.
Board of Commissioners, you are adjourned. Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Good job.